No escape! That was the grim reality as the Horse-Lord's warband surrounded the village. While the players were complaining about potion prices, Wibbleford was on the verge of being extorted by the sword. Welcome back to BX Brew. We are continuing our Old School Essentials campaign, exploring the Valley of the Hawks, using Hexcrawl Chronicles by Frog God Games, with Dolmenwood and necrotic gnome modules layered into our sandbox like some kind of grim dark lasagna. Today, the party has to decide, do they pay the Horse-Lord's blood tax, or do they risk a midnight escape through a freezing winter storm? We're looking at Dolmenwood burial rites and a humming horror in the jeweller's sanctum. Let's see who survives the night. But first, our weekly whispers. Houses of Greenwood and Absinthe unite. Sylvan Dominion of the Northwest declared. Giants engage the forces of Duke Bakewell. And onto the game. So, the game starts with Leaf and Shadow Spinner eating breakfast in the busy tavern. It's bloodworm porridge. It's a favourite. There's a lot of bloodworm in the dishes in Wibbleford. Clearly does a good trade in breakfast for the local workers. Barbar wakes, the barbarian, and immediately looks around for his star medal, but he can't find it. Checks under the bed in the corner. His other companions have left the room. He's on his own, so he gets dressed and he comes out looking for everybody. In the bar, Leaf has asked if anyone has seen Floss the cleric, and is told that he was seen in the early morning dashing across the village green towards the church, carrying a pillow case with something heavy in it. The party discusses their next move. They've acknowledged now that all of them except the barbarian are infected by this star jelly, and they're going to need to find a cure. Should they return to the crater, find some other places in town, like the Oath House they'd heard about, or the haunted bog of the old gods. They're not quite sure what their next move should be, and at this point they're getting eyeballed. They can feel they're being watched. Someone's trying to catch their attention. They look across the bar. It's none other than Jezum Izinjuga. He is also having breakfast, gets up, looks at his pocket watch on his way over and says, well, I suppose you'll finish collecting your supplies and be heading back to the manse this morning? So Jezum is the guy who hired them to clean out his grandfather's cellar. The Izinjuga family have fallen on hard times. Jezum wants to sell up the manse. His grandfather was a special jeweler, he made magical jewelry, so he was a wizard as well. The basement is where he did it. It's where his workshop was, and it's full of traps because, there are valuable things there and all sorts of weird stuff. So in order to put it on the market to sell, he needs the basement cleared out, and it's the party who were doing it until they got wrapped up in the weird stuff happening in Wibbleford. Jezum kind of leans over conspiratorial and says, there's something weird going on here. It's not like it used to be. I'm leaving as soon as I can as well. So I remind the party that not completing a job in a timely manner will have an effect on their regional standing. It's a scale that they have. At the moment, it's fairly high after they were labelled heroes for the last module we did. So now they're enjoying not additional services, but cut price services, more benefits and boons when they do visit towns and villages. They're kind of famous now, but this can all change if they do something wrong, if they upset people, if they end up being murder hobos, their standing will come down. When it's completely, I suppose I could go into this in rules. Maybe I will. But when you have a negative standing, you get also, you can you'll get assassins after you, and people will refuse to let you into a town, things like that. They go to the blacksmith. He's the chap with the adventuring gear, also stopping at the baker's to get some food. The barbarian is sorting out their equipment. Previously I'd said that all of the structures in town, all the houses and shops, are adorned with these gaudy flags in honor of the stars falling, which they attribute to the goddess of summer, the goddess of plenty, called Medda. That's why they've been consuming it. They're a village who is aligned to Medda, a lawful village. Everywhere's adorned with these flags. The flags have colours on that are hard to look at, which is odd. Walking through town, they notice the very first and only structure they've seen that doesn't have any flags on. They ask in at the blacksmith. The blacksmith tells them that a crone lives there. The spellcasters in the party, the druid and the illusionist, are interested. Crones are, often magic users. So they want to go and check that house out. The barbarian says he'll continue doing what do they call that? The guy who does the supplies, like the quartermaster. He's doing the quartermaster's job. The magic users go to the crone's place. She's reluctant to let them in. There's a sort of comedic scene where they can hear, once she's peeped through and the window and seen that they're magic users too, there's this moment when you can hear bolts being slid across, and more bolts, and more across the door, then it being unlocked, and then unlocked again, and then more bolts underneath on the lower part of the door, until finally it opens up. She gives them admittance. They have a lot to talk about. The illusionist tries to learn a spell from her, but fails. Tries to learn hypnotize. So that means that she is unable to teach it. She's just not good at teaching that. The crone, that is. The druid is a holy caster. It's not the word. A divine caster. So he doesn't need to learn spells. He just prays for them. So instead he asks if she has any magical artifacts that he could buy. She produces a potion of heroism, which he then proceeds to quibble over the price. Oh dear. It's a noob thing to do. But he is only level 2. And the crone also tells them about their disease, about its incubation time, that they should see symptoms in about a week, that it will reach its full, sort of the most virulent form after 4 to 5 weeks. A week is about 1 session time, so we've got 4-5 sessions until that they've got to try and find a cure. The crone says it might just, once you stop being exposed to star jelly, maybe the disease will go of its own accord, or maybe you need to find a specialist who can help you. She mentions a couple: the Spring Court in the northwest, there's a sacred grove and a druid. She mentions somebody else, but I can't remember who. They suggest Cloda, who is they've been past her weird tower. They've been in the hex close to it. They haven't seen it yet. She's got, not renown, but she's notorious in the region. A magic user. The crone warns them off her. Says to not get mixed up with Clodagh. And at that point, the barbarian joins them. There are some other people that can help with this as well, with the cure, which we could probably I'll probably have to insert into the narrative. Barbarian turns up. Suddenly, a warning horn sounds in town, and the church bell begins to toll. People are manning the palisade walls. They can hear people calling out, saying that riders from Dragbottom are approaching. The crone tells them that Dragbottom is their closest village, just a few hexes north, on the other side of the lake. It's a fishing village. They've recently got taken over by a load of bandits. Kind of, I don't know, I kind of imagine them to be like Genghis Khan type people. They're led by a horse-lord called Xaviennon. He was leading a campaign against Clodagh's tower, but had been driven back by her and her owlbears, and so he'd taken up residence at Dragbottom instead to recoup his losses, and he'd enslaved the populace. So now he must have heard of the star metal and its value, and is sending over a war party to menace Wibbleford and put the squeeze on them, try and extort some of their newfound wealth. The party panics. They think they're in two minds what to do. The barbarian even suggests siding with Xaviennon, but as the party are heroic, even though some of them would rather they weren't, that's not something that's on the cards. They've got to be good. This isn't an evil campaign. And reminding your players of that is a good way of not having a table of murder hobos, which ties into my regional standing and some other things I've done in the past. So they go to the church. They need to find their retainer, Lyle. The priest is in there packing away valuables from the altar into a trunk. He intends to go into the wilderness and stay in his hermit retreat until this horseman stuff blows over. His niece Trudy is in the back, tending to the sick. So they go out to the back and enter a rather strange windowless room, the repast room. Trudy says, did you not notice that we don't have a graveyard? Well, this is why. She's feeding corpses who are propped up around a large table. There's a fire in this room. It's like a front room, but with windowless. Followers of Meda also practice ancestor worship. These are all the former priests of the church, going back generations and in different states of decomposition. They're sort of propped into place in high-back chairs with their hands in a praying position on top of the table, bound in maiden's hair. It's to prevent them from coming back as ghosts or zombies, slipping into undeath. She's feeding them a broth, and it's kind of all spilling out from where they don't have the tissue or organs anymore to handle eating. Floss is here too, with his head wound all blue, and he's joined the ranks of the clergy, the ancestral clergy now. Lyle, on the other hand, looks in good shape. He's fully healed. He's having his third bowl of broth. Aye, I'm doing fine, he says. I'm ready to ride any time you are. So they get their equipment together. The priest and Trudy leave the church and lock it up. And the party, as the sun's setting, head to the stables to get their mounts. Using the last bits of light and sticking to the shadows, they manage to slip past the horsemen and head at speed into the wilderness. It's late already, and they've been up a long time. They can only do about 6 miles before they need to rest exhausted and make camp. They see the last of the horsemen entering the village as they're leaving, and everybody panicking. They make a vow to return and help them when they're in a better position to. The first night they spend out in the wilderness is okay, actually. The druid makes a really good meal. He does makes a skill check, cooks a nice meal for them. They have a fire, and they sleep well, dreamless, restful sleep. The next day they wake up at first light. There's been a heavy snow now, sort of weighing in on the canvas of the tent. They pack away their camp. They've got quite a distance. They've still got another day's riding to go. So they start off immediately. Because there's heavy snow, the snow's still falling. There's a snowstorm, half visibility, reduced or maybe no missile fire in a snowstorm. I don't think there's missile fire. You can't use missiles in a snowstorm. They have to make an exposure check halfway through the journey. The barbarian neglected to wear his furs. They're still packed up. He fails his exposure save and comes down with the sniffles. When they make camp that night, they're unable to get a fire going, and because of the heavy snowfall, they couldn't get any dry wood. So there's no fire that night. They huddle in the tent together. The barbarian is feverish. They all have weird dreams, which I make a note of. They have a poor sleep. Because he's got exposure, he has taken a trauma point. I'll explain that in the rules breakdown, but it effectively means all of his rolls, until he lifts the trauma, all of his rolls will be at a disadvantage. On a d20, I think that's the equivalent to a -5. So it's quite harsh. Because of his bad night's sleep, he doesn't get to lift his trauma status, so he's still sick the next day. They make their last ride, but before they do, they pack away the tent and they try to raise their spirits by having a snowball fight. And they do have a bit of a laugh. Shadow Spinner gets drenched, but she doesn't get ill, luckily. They all pelt each other, and then they ride the last. They ride the last 2 leagues, is it? To the manse of the Izinjuga family. When they get there, they get straight on with the work. They stable the horses around the back. They go down into the basement, and they start backtracking through the corridors. They cross the traps that they'd passed before. They were unsure about one of them, but they work out, they're these tiled floor traps. They work out which tiles are safe for this final trap. There's a blade trap and a magical electricity trap. There's a third one too, but I don't believe they've gone that way to try and cross it. But they get across these ones safely. They're going to need to disarm them at some point. That's part of them completing their job. And they make it to this big library that's all... the shelves have fallen down. They've fought giant centipedes here before. And they've found some books that they've thought would be valuable. Some sort of tomes of knowledge that they could sell to collectors previously. So they're back here again. Last time they were here, Shadowspinner saw the Thief Ghost. The Thief Ghost is someone they've been seeing since being in the dungeon. They've seen them about 3 times, I think. The thief seems to replay this moment of when they first entered the dungeon. The ghost is like on a loop that they keep replaying. They've shared a dream about the thief as well and learnt more about her and the circumstances behind her coming to the jeweler's sanctum to try and steal. It was for her sick sister. It seems that the thief died here, and that's why they keep seeing this thing replayed. Anyway, the last time they were in the dungeon, Shadowspinner was on her own in the door to the library and saw the thief come in and activate a secret passage in the north wall. She saw where she did it. So this time they're back. Shadowspinner goes over to that area and searches for where she can activate it. She finds a brick that's different colour to the rest, pushes it in, and lo and behold, a secret door opens up. She immediately sees she shines her torch in. They're using torch light here. There are no natural lights down here or magical lights. She shines a torch in. She immediately sees a pit trap and not a lot else. The barbarian jumps in through the gap, followed by the druid. They can see a little bit more in there. They spot a valuable silver statue of like a girl playing the flute, about 2 feet high. And as they're inspecting that, there's an ambient light starts to grow, sort of enchanted illumination, gets brighter and brighter until it illuminates the whole room quite brightly. There are 3 more statues, so there's like 1 in every corner of the silver statues. They're clearly going to nick these. They see more pit traps. They can see that they've got spikes in too. And right in the middle of the room, when there's the room sort of swiftly illuminates, there's a great big spider hanging there. They roll for surprise. Oh, another of the things since they've been in the dungeon, exploring it earlier, they've been hearing this haunting humming noise, and it was doing the David Bowie, Bing Crosby Drummer Boy song. So they've been hearing and now they're in this room with the spiders there. They can see its kind of mandibles, its hairy mouthpieces moving, and it's in fact the origin of this humming. It's which is kind of quite gross. Now that's revealed, they roll for surprise, but they're not surprised. The spider's hungry. Initiative is declared. The druid declares magic. The illusionist holds. The barbarian readies his weapons. Takes his shield, puts it onto his arm, and draws his sword. Party wins initiative. The druid casts invisibility to animals, but the giant spider in the book is actually tagged as being a magical creature, and invisible to animals doesn't work against magic creatures. The druid's very disappointed about that, as you can imagine. So everybody else does their stuff. the turn passes to the spider. Spider leaps down, runs across, attacks the closest PC, which is the druid. Hits. The druid's about level 2 or 3, maybe at the most. He gets hit for 6 HP, which is quite a lot for that level of character. He's still standing. He has to roll for poison. He saves against poison, which is good. It's initiative again. This time the illusionist declares invisible magic invisibility. Druid declares cure light. Party wins initiative again. Druid heals himself, like for the full amount, I think, pretty much. He gets 5 or 6 HP. It's D6 plus 1, isn't it, for cure light? The druid goes invisible. The illusionist goes invisible to everything, apart from creatures that can see past illusions. So undead and other magical creatures that have a high magical save or wisdom. Barbarian moves into fight. He has to now. He's got a trauma point. He's fighting with a disadvantage. He's not up to his best, so that's why he was hanging back. He sort of leaps in front of the druid. He strikes. He fails with his disadvantage. Disadvantage, you roll with 2 dice, take the lowest number. He misses. He had a valor point from last session. He uses it now to re-roll. I can talk about that at the end. We'll talk about, in the rule section, we'll talk about regional standing, trauma, and valor. Valor's like the opposite of trauma, I suppose. I've only just added valor recently after reading 2024 5th edition. I thought it would be nice. There are some things in there that I like. Maybe 1 or 2 things. It's a great monster book. And I'm looking forward to reading the lore about Greyhawk. He uses his valor point to re-roll the dice. This time he gets a really good hit. He does about 8 damage, I think. And it's pretty much, I'm pretty sure it's half of the HP of the spider. So next round, the spider's going to have to make a morale check. Yeah, he does a great big whack. And we have to leave it at that point. Our 3 hours is up. We would have gone over 3 hours at that point. So we go back to our we've got this sort of welcome screen on our. We use Roll20 on our VTT. We've got maps and stuff we use on Roll20, and tokens and sound effects and music. It's all very. We used to be like completely theatre of the mind, but now we've gone over to maps and tokens. And we go back to our title screen, which is theatre curtains. And so the curtain descends on that session. I hope you enjoyed it. Up next is the rules bit. I said I'd talk about 2 pieces of rule. First one is regional standing. I mean, for a long time, I've done town standing. It's just really useful. It's really useful because it makes the party responsible for their actions. If they, rather than have individual ratings of how they're doing, it does talk about in morale, what do you call it, with retainers, they're when you first get a retainer, they get a score of how loyal they are to you. Loyalty. It's basically morale. But in OSE, I think in BX they call it morale, but in OSE, Old School Essentials, they rename it to loyalty. But it's a morale score for retainers, and rather than go over it and break morale, they have to get equal or under to retain their loyalty to you if you ask them to do something dangerous. Oh, that was something that I didn't mention in the game report. After that morning when they raced away from the Wibbleford, that first morning I hadn't done a morale check for a loyalty check for the retainer. When you at the end of an adventure, you have to make a loyalty check to see if they stay with the party, and you modify it with how they were treated during the adventure. The barbarian hired has the highest charisma, so he does all the hiring. He also always treats the retainers incredibly badly. They had 2 retainers, and he was the reason that the first one was killed, and the reason that Lyle was cursed. So I was very generous, and I only gave a -1 for the loyalty roll. Lyle made it and didn't want to stay with the party, so he told them that evening when they left Wibblesford. He said, "I won't be riding with you back south. I'm going solo from here. But if you let me sleep the night, because we're all exhausted, I'll help you make camp." So he did. He contributed to making camp, which is a really cool mechanic that we've taken from Dolmenwood. It's really great. And I was talking to the party, the players last session, and saying, "What do you think of the camping rules?" And they said they really liked them. It sort of brings everybody together. I can go into that as well, but at a different time. I'll go into that rule. So this rule, he left anyway. Town standing. So, or now for us it's regional rather than just town. The way you treat retainers, and when you hire them, if you roll badly, you'll take a -1 against future attempts at getting retainers in that town, and then it makes it individual. Then it's just about the person who did it. But you see, if you make it a party penalty, well, then it forces everybody to keep each other in line. They police each other because it's for the party. It's best to do that with everything, if you can, because then they become responsible for each other. So we've got this standing. We had a fairly basic one, but I've just amped it up. I was watching a good video from Tenkar. It was not quite what he was talking about. He was talking about something else. But it made me think, I'm going to expand my my standing table spectrum. So it's bigger now. There's 5 pluses and there's 5 degrees of plus and 5 of minus to make it interesting. And Tenkar's Tavern, very good YouTube channel. He's a great old school DM with loads of advice and great ideas about making your game work according to old school principles. Really good, really good. Him and Daniel Norton of Bandits Keep are my 2 favourite creators for DMs. Definitely, they're brilliant. Check them out. Daniel Norton, Bandits Keep. So, I've just got this much bigger spectrum for it, and I've kind of said why it's good. And it also just makes the world feel dynamic. It reminds you that the things that your characters do, your players do, has an effect in the whole region. If you're running a hex crawl, that's the sort of thing you need. I was watching a video about Tenkar doing advice about Hexcrawl and the region and how it should feel living. Recently I'm working on that a lot. to do that. And this is a good way of doing it. You know, if you do well on a module or badly, it has a effect on the world. You know, how you interact with PCs who are established. So yeah, I've got these 5 grades, and it's you get a discount on all prices for services. You get reaction bonuses. Reactions are a big thing in BX. Monster reactions and reactions of other NPCs. So there's a reaction roll. It's really useful. It's really, really useful, the reaction roll. So yeah, that affects your reaction as well, going up and down on this scale. You get favors. They're actually at a stage of standing where they're allowed to ask for a favor from a town official once per visit, which is really cool. They haven't utilized it yet. The effect that you have on the town watch, I suppose that's like a reaction one. But at the moment, the town watch were always really horrible to them, but now the town watch are being all like nice to them, which is good. And then right at the top, when you do really well, you get bonuses to getting hirelings, additional loyalty from them, get gifts. You can even gather when you're legendary, which is +5. You can sort of gather together a town militia around you, because you're so, or like just a crowd of people who will defend you. Yeah, so that's really cool. And then at the very bottom end, you get assassination attempts, shot on sight, complete ban from town, where they won't even allow you through the gates. People won't trade with you. Yeah, your wanted posters everywhere. They've been in a situation where they'd got a position of responsibility when we were running the Evils of Ilmere. I didn't enjoy it as a DM. Everybody was saying how good it was. That's why I started running it. Everybody said it was difficult to run, but if you could, then it was amazing. And it was difficult to run, and I did run it. And no, seriously, overhyped. The dungeons are once you got it up and running, the actual dungeons themselves are really empty and bland. I didn't like it. I couldn't wait to get them out of it. I sort of cut the adventure early. Yeah. Anyway, I don't want to be critical about someone else's work, but I don't know. Maybe I will. Maybe that's another video. All right, so that's that. Let's talk about this trauma and valor thing. So what are we going to say about that? I've got a note somewhere. So you get penalties in BX if you don't eat, if you don't rest. I've added exposure. There are other ongoing penalties for things that escape me right now, but they're all a bit different. Plus a -2 here, a D3 minus hit points there. There's too many of them, and they were difficult to keep track of. So I just simplified it all into trauma. Yeah, so trauma, I've written it down here in our rules. Trauma represents the consequences of stress, fatigue, and exposure. It is expressed as a non-stacking disadvantage to all rolls made. You do accrue trauma points, so the amount of trauma points received are cumulative, and if they exceed 4, then you need indefinite convalescence, which means you get took out of the game and you're bedridden for the rest of your life, or you have to go to a adventurer's retirement home because you're just too you've lost the plot. I did it at 4 because originally with trauma that we were doing minus. Each time you had a trauma point, it was a -1. So 1 trauma, -1, 2 trauma -2, and 4 is the biggest penalty in BX. You get -4 for the blinded condition. So I thought you could have 4 trauma points, and anything over that, that's when you're took out the game. And you're not dead, but you're unfit to continue as an adventurer. You have to go to a sanatorium. Yeah, and then just recently, that was all right. That was very inconsequential. The way that you get trauma taken off is through rest. So we do the standard rest stuff from BX. Well, actually, it's standard with a little bit of finesse. So you get D3 hit points back per day of complete rest in town, usually in a hotel room. You know what I mean? Where you pay for rest. That's BX. In the wilderness, you get 1 HP back, but we require stuff in the wilderness. You have to make encounter checks. Just 1 though, because it's boring otherwise. We just make 1 for rest overnight. And then we've changed it recently to the Dolmenwood rules too, where you need to roll to be able to have a good night's sleep, and then you get your spell slots back on the condition that you rest well. It's a con roll, but that's something else. So D3 full day's rest. You pretty much in town. That's why it's safe to rest there. Wilderness 1 HP with a sleep check, with an encounter check during the night, and then we do 1 HP back in the dungeon as well when you sleep, but you have to sleep in a secured location, so you have to use spikes on the door or windows, and that then you don't need to make an encounter. You can't have fires in the dungeon either, usually. So those are pretty standard BX. And for rest and recuperating HP. So we just do the same with trauma. D3 HP in a town and D3 trauma points recovered. 1 HP wilderness and dungeon, 1 trauma automatically recovered in wilderness and dungeon, so long as you satisfy the criteria of rest in there. Yeah, so that's how you get it back. Oh, we also used to do it where you get it back by eating sweeties. It was we have this thing with bandits. We have sweeties in our game, like what Americans would call candy. We don't do it so much. We did it when we were doing a mega dungeon, when we were running what's that famous one? Oh gosh, Stone Hell. We ran that for a few months. In the podcast, actually, I've got recordings of that in the podcast. If you go over to Acast, you can hear that. We ran it up to a point. It was. I liked it. I'd like to go back to it. It's really good. Yeah, I liked it a lot. Would like to go back to that sometime. The party we were running 2 sessions at the same time back then. Oh no, we were alternating. We were doing the mega dungeon 1 week, and then the other week we were doing the more like world campaign, which is what this is. This is a continuation of that. So that's the trauma. Oh yeah, and in the mega dungeon, there were sweeties. You could use them to heal trauma by eating them, and you could also use them to bargain with bandits. There was a lot of bandit encounters, and bandits would let you go if you gave them some if you gave them all of the sweeties you had. Our bandits are all from Liverpool, and they're sort of like the Beatles. Yeah, it's weird. And they love free sweeties. It's their deal. We don't do that so much now. They still are in contact with these one kind of bandits that live in Nightlandia, who are kind of bandits turned good. But that's something else. So that's that. I did it. I talked about that, and I talked about the other thing. There you go. That was both of them. Was there anything I should have? Oh, Valor points. So we've just introduced Valor. I think I said it in the last episode. I got the idea from 2024 5th edition. I'm not sure if it was in the earlier 5th edition too, probably. And I just wanted a way to consolidate. This is a way of consolidating all the bad stuff. So why not consolidate good play into something something that we can give them. So you get valor points for acting in character despite danger, making bold, risky choices, creating a clever plan, acting selflessly for the party. Again, I'm trying to create this. You need party solidarity and party responsibility to have a good game that doesn't descend into some idiotic stuff. Strong roleplay and enhancing the session atmosphere. So these are all things you get for Valor. You can spend it on a re-roll of any dice, including DM or facing dice. You can give a Valor point to somebody, I'm pretty sure. So you could give it to somebody, but you'd have to make the narrative. You'd have to make the it makes sense in the narrative, in the fiction. If you don't use it up in the session, you get one session to use it. If you don't use it, it gets converted to 1,000 XP. We've got a slightly different XP system, which I can talk about some other time. But you get the full XP for that 1,000. And that's pretty much it for that. Trauma it's just a much more convenient way of tracking bad things. It's just a single penalty. Oh yeah, you use it for running as well. In when you're fleeing from a fight, you get the penalty. You get an AC penalty. You can't use a shield. Just for that moment, and you can run, which puts you up to, instead of fight speed, which is a quarter or a third. It's a third, isn't it? You go up to your when you're running, you go up to your exploration speed, which is triple. I'm not sure how I feel about this. We don't use it that much. We do occasionally when people are literally running away. That's the only time we use running, when people are fleeing. I'm not sure about this though, because everything that I like, this is the only thing that the players can do that monsters don't. And I always like it that anything a player can do, charging, there are no special charging, bracing. There are no special moves that players have that monsters don't, except this. I don't let monsters run, and maybe I should. So when you run, you can run for so many rounds. I think it's like 30. It's a lot, and then you have to rest for so many turns. It's complicated. And if you don't rest for so many turns, then you get some sort of penalty, an ongoing penalty, -2 to hit or something like that. So again, this was a perfect time to use trauma to just get all of those penalties into one trackable, thing. So what happens now is, well, the way I do it is, as soon as you run, you take trauma immediately. You take you take a point of trauma, and you don't. The only way you lift it by doing a short rest, like a 10-minute rest. We do short rests, that you have to do every so many turns, and which I can go into our turn stuff, which is a little bit different from the thing, but I keep saying that about everything. You take trauma immediately that you run. You take just 1 point of trauma every time you sort of burst into a run. And then you have to rest for 10 minutes, make an encounter roll, make a wandering monster check, and then the trauma's lifted. That's it. What trauma's done is trauma has made, the new trauma with disadvantages, it's made it much more deadly, really. When we were doing a scale of -1 for 1 trauma, -2 for 2, it was barely noticeable, and then you would easily lift it, because we were doing the original rest rules. But now we've switched it to a disadvantage roll, which, like I said, on a D20, I think is the equivalent of a -5. And you have to, if you're in the wilderness, you have to, and we're going to be doing it in the dungeon, you have to rest comfortably, have a good night's rest using a con check, plus modifiers for sleeping roll, fire, good thing to eat, bedtime story. Actually, we do that. It's much more challenging. Yeah, and getting trauma is a real pain. So, yeah, it's good. It's working well. It's keeping the players on their toes, keeping it deadly. You've got to keep it high stakes and deadly. That's BX, baby. All right, there we go. So, thanks for sticking around for the rules bit. Find us on social media. Come and play with us. We'd love to meet some new friends to play our game. Always welcome. Yeah, come and find us. Thanks for watching. Bye.